Greetings BookTube, I'm Anders, and today I will recommend some scary or spooky or just books that are well suited for the Halloween season. Some of these books I haven't read in a long time, so I might not remember them correctly. Let's start with some books for the younger readers. Liesel and Poe by Lauren Oliver. This is a story about a young girl, Liesel, who lives in the attic because of her evil stepmom. And then one night a ghost, Poe, shows up and they become friends. And things happen that night that drags them into a magical adventure. Then we have The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. Nobody Owens grows up in a graveyard. He's being raised by the ghosts. And if he tries to leave the graveyard, he gets hunted by the man who killed the rest of his family when he was just a toddler. So he can't really leave the graveyard, but he also can't stay because he's getting older. And then we have The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon by Stephen King. It's about a young girl who gets lost in the forest while out hiking with her mom and her brother. She's a big fan of baseball, and especially the baseball player Tom Gordon. And while she's out there alone in the forest, what really keeps her going is the thought that he will come rescue her. However, there might be something else out in the forest with her. Okay, on to some books for teenagers. 172 Hours on the Moon by Johan Harstad. 3 teenagers, one from Norway, one from Japan, and one from France, win a week-long trip to the moon. Once they get to the moon base, things start to go horribly wrong. And I have to say, this book messed with my mind for months after I read it. If your imagination is not as vivid as mine, maybe you won't have that problem. Next, The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. I think you should know as little as possible about this book before getting into it, or before watching the movie, which I haven't seen. Is it even out yet? Anyhow, it is one of the best books I have read in the last few years, so I highly recommend it. I'm not sure if I'm just going to recommend one book or the whole series, but Alice in Zombieland, the first book in the White Rabbit Chronicles by Gina Showalter. It is not actually a retelling of Alice's adventures in Wonderland. It's more inspired by it. So please don't go into it thinking that it will be Alice in Wonderland with zombies. You will just get disappointed. That said, it is a typical teenage high school drama with zombies living in the spirit realm, and they're killing people's spirits, and Alice and her friends are zombie hunters. Let's get into some classics. The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. Not exactly a horror book, but I still think it fits the season. After an amazing meteor shower, everyone who saw it turns blind. The main character, Bill Mason, however, is one of the lucky few who can still see. And then there are the Triffids, plant-like creatures that can pull up their roots and walk around, and they have stingers that they can lash out at people with, and the poison could kill you. And now that people are blind, they can't avoid getting too close to the Triffids, and that means they are on the hunt. A short story, perhaps. The Call of Cthulhu, or however you pronounce that, by H.P. Lovecraft. It's the only thing by Lovecraft that I have ever read, so I can't recommend any of the other things he's written. But this one is about a person who investigates some weird things that are happening, and it leads him to a cult that worships the great old ones. And then some classics that everyone knows about, but I still want to mention them. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. The book is kind of different from all the movies I've seen, so it's definitely worth a read. Dracula by Bram Stoker. This book is unusual because it's told in journal entries, letters, and newspaper articles. And The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. It is a very short novel, under 100 pages, but it's still very good. And I don't think I can make this video without mentioning Edgar Allan Poe. I haven't read all of his short stories and poems, but one that I remember I really enjoyed was The Black Cat. It's a short story that is about 20 pages or something, so it's very short. And speaking of Poe, when I was in high school, I thought it would be so cool to memorize his poem The Raven. I got as far as the first verse. I wonder if I still remember it. Hang on. Let's blindfold myself and see if I can recite it. Without any cuts. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volumes of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as if someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this, and nothing more." Okay, I'll find out when I edit how well I did, and you'll see, because I will put a counter up somewhere for every mistake I made. If you have any recommendations for scary books or spooky books or something that fits the Halloween season, leave them in the comments below. I guess that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and until next time.